Okay, well, hello, hello. Thank you so much for coming back to watch another intermediate class for SEDA College online. I'm very happy to see you here today, and I think we're going to have a great time with our lesson. So, get situated, get comfortable, have your laptop, phone, whatever you're watching on ready, and let's begin. So, I think we have a very good lesson planned for today because we're going to talk about something very important, something you'll probably need to use every day. And this is going to be something called the causative or a new passive sentence. So, this is a different type of passive. So in my previous lessons, we did talk about the passive. We went into a lot of detail about how to make it and the steps for the transformation. So I'm only going to talk a little bit about the passive today, and then we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that causative. I'm going to try to answer, what are they? What are causative sentences? How are they different from a regular passive sentence? And then how do you use them? How do English speakers use them? How would you use it in your daily life? Those are going to be the three questions I want to focus on today. So as I said, let's begin with that review of the passive. So, passive sentences. If you'll remember from before, a passive sentence is just another style of sentence. So we have something called active and passive. In an active sentence, the subject does the action. And a passive sentence is the opposite. The subject has been moved or removed so that now the object does the action, or the object looks like it does the action. And so we use the passive in a few common situations. When you don't know the subject, we'll use the passive. When the subject isn't important, we'll use the passive. When you want to hide the subject, we'll use the passive. And when you want to be more formal, we'll use the passive. So, for example, my bicycle was stolen. Here, I don't know the subject. I know another person did it, but I don't know who. I don't know who they are, their name, anything like that. So I say it in the passive. Or, the light bulb was invented by Thomas Edison. This is an example where actually the subject isn't important. So, really, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. That's the active sentence here if we undo the passive. Well, here I want to focus on the light bulb. So I say the light bulb first to give it emphasis, to make it more important. So then I use the passive here to make Thomas Edison go at the end. Or I can say a cup was broken in the kitchen. Here I want to hide the subject. So I'm doing the dishes. I make a mistake, I break a cup, but I don't want to tell. I don't want to tell anyone, so I don't say, oh, I broke a cup. I say, oh my gosh, a cup was broken. And here, that way I can say the sentence without saying me. Or maybe you want to be formal. This is especially true for academic English. We'll say research was conducted. Instead of I conducted research, we'll do the passive and say research was conducted. So all of these three or four sentences are situations where the subject has been moved or removed from the sentence. So it's either here at the end or it's been completely removed from the sentence so that the original object did the or does the action. And all of these sentences can just change active to passive. You can switch it like a switch or a lever. My bicycle was stolen. Someone stole my bicycle. The light bulb was invented by Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Um, I broke a cup in the kitchen. I conducted I conducted research. And so we can always just undo and change. And the reason we use the passive is always connected to these kind of situations here. And so you'll remember that it's always just a switch between these two forms, the active form and the passive form. The active is always subject, verb, object, where the passive is always object plus be, past participle, and then your subject in a by some by prepositional phrase. And it's in parentheses here because it's optional. So someone stole my bike. There's your active sentence. Someone, verb stole, object my bike. I can change that for passive. My bike was stolen. And now I have object my bike. Verb be was stolen, past participle. And then by someone, which I can remove because I don't need it. It's not helpful. And so that's the passive. This is kind of the basic common passive that we have in English. And as I said, we talked about it a lot in a previous video. So, if you want to review a bit about this or go a little more in detail about this, please go watch my other video on the platform. It is titled Passives, and that way you can review. So now what it's time to do is compare. How is this passive different from the causative? Well, the causative is a special type of construction in language. So causative here is the big grammar word because many languages have a causative. In fact, almost all languages have a causative. They do it in different ways, but this is essentially a type of passive sentence. And this passive sentence is one where one person causes an action to happen. So they are the reason that something happens or something changes or something gets done. Usually this is by money or power or influence. I think only rich people do this. But no, not just rich people and wealthy people, but all people use the causative. But it has that idea that you use something of you, some money, some power, your commands, your ideas to cause something to happen. And so what the causative does is it means that we add the causer to the sentence. What's a causer? Well, this is the person who causes the thing to happen. So this is a construction so that I can say, I can add that person to the sentence. So not just say what happened, but I can now say who caused exactly what to happen. So I can give more information. So for example, I had my hair cut yesterday. Well, in this sentence, I did not cut my hair. I gave my money to a hairstylist, and the hairstylist cut my hair. And so then I use this causative sentence because I had my hair cut because I used my money. Or they are having their house renovated by the same company we used. So here it's the same idea about money. So they are renovating their house, they're fixing their house, and they're using a company. It happens to be the same company that we used, but they're using a company. So they're using their money to have their house renovated by some company, by the same company. And so in this example, they are not fixing their house, they're giving money to a contractor to do it for them. And so this is what the causative is here to express. Because I do not want to say, a hairdresser cut my hair. That's not what's important. Or, you know, a company is renovating their house. What I want to say is they are making it happen. They are the person, or I am the person making it happen, and that's my emphasis. So we use the causative. So what's the structure of this then? Well, we always have to go back to our active sentence because causative sentences, just like passive sentences, have an active and passive switch. Not all sentences are causative though, so be careful about that. Only specific verbs are causative, and we'll talk about that. But for a causative verb, you can always change from active to causative or passive. So what is this form? Well, it's a little complicated, but we're going to go through it step by step. So in the active sentence, as always, we have subject, verb, object. But in the causative passive, the sentence is different. It starts with the causer. We have verb have, that's our causative verb. The object of the sentence, past participle, and then the subject, this original subject, if you want it in a by prepositional phrase, just like the original passive. I have this star here because informally get can be used in this way. So have and get are totally equal, and get is just more conversational, informal. Have is more for writing. It's the only difference. So here are some examples. The hairstylist cut my hair. We're going to go back to my last example. So this is that active sentence. The hairstylist cut my hair. This hairstylist, he is the person who did the action. He cut my hair. But I gave him money to do this. I walked into the hair salon and I said, I want a haircut. So I made it happen. So I can say this as the causative. I had my hair cut by the hairstylist. And now this is that causative passive. I'm the causer. I made it happen. Had, past participle, sorry, past form here because this is a past tense sentence. So past had what? My haircut, your object here. And then I can say the subject, the hairstylist, if I want. I don't have to. I can say I had my haircut done, and that would be fine. Or I can say I had my hair cut by the hairstylist, and that's totally fine too. It's just about emphasis, really. And so that's really what we're doing between these causative sentences is changing between this active causative sentence and this passive causative. And as I said, you can change these for get. I I got my haircut, no difference. I had my haircut, I got my haircut, no difference at all. So what are the steps? How do I make this change? Well, the first thing you need to do is find the subject and the object. If you want to make a causative sentence, you have to reorder the parts, so you need to identify the parts correctly. Then you move the subject to the end of the sentence, and you can either delete it, you can remove it, or you can add a by preposition. That's your choice. Then you add the causer to the subject position. So you move that subject or get rid of it, and then you add the causer, I, the company, whoever. Now you have to add have and make sure that your verb is in the past participle because we're changing the verbs. And finally, you put the object, the original object, after that have. This is a very special thing in English where we have the object in between the verb phrase. So I'll also talk a bit about that in a moment. But so these are your 5 steps. So let's go through them one at a time. So step 1, find the subject and the object. I've got 3 sentences here. The mechanic fixed my car. Before going to work, I exercise in the morning. The footballer kicked the ball. So let's find them. Let's find our subjects and our objects in these sentences. Well, in the first one, the mechanic fixed my car. Well, the subject is always the first thing in the sentence. The mechanic, I have my verb fixed, my car. This is logical that my mechanic, he is or she, is the person who did this. So I know that's my subject. And I know that this happened to my car, so that's my object. The next example. Before going to work, I exercise in the morning. Well, here, very clear subject. I exercise, so there it is. But do we have an object? Well, exercise. Do I exercise to something? Does my exercise affect something? No. So no subject, no object here, nothing, just in the morning. Or my next one, the footballer kicked the football. So I just need to ask who kicked and what got kicked. Well, the footballer kicked, so I know he's the subject or she's the subject. And then what got kicked? Well, that's the ball, so I know that's the object. So there we go. Easy peasy to identify the subject and the object. However, for the causative, we have to be more careful. Which has the right meaning? So we know that we need a subject and an object to make the causative. So number 2 is gone. We can't use it. This sentence is only active. However, What do I do for these two? They both have subjects and they both have objects, so can they make the causative? Well, then you have to ask yourself which has the right meaning. And you have to say, is this action caused by somebody else, or did the person choose to do it? So here, the mechanic fixed my car. Well, I know that the mechanic, in this situation, I probably took my car to a garage, I paid the mechanic money, and then they fixed the car. The footballer, well, yes, okay, somebody pays a footballer, a football team, a club pays a footballer. But usually it is the footballer's choice. They like to do it, they choose to do it. So this isn't a causative sentence. This is just a normal active sentence. So here, number one is our only candidate. This is the only one that can become causative because this is the only one where money or influence or control, anything like that, is involved. This is the only one that has that. So we'll take number one. The next sentence, or the next step, is to move the subject to the end. And as I said, we can do it with a by or we can remove it. So we kind of have a couple options here. This mechanic fixed my car. Well, that's our original sentence. So the next step, I move it to the end. So there's my subject and my object. I move the subject to the end of the sentence here, and I don't change my object. I keep that the same, and I just take my subject in down. And as I said, we can remove it entirely. So we can keep it or remove it, but I've got it at the end of the sentence, and I add my by phrase here. So this is the first step of the transformation. We've identified our parts. This sentence, yes, it has the correct meaning, so I move my subject to the end of the sentence. Next, I add the causer to the subject position. So now I need to think who or what caused this to happen. So I've got my kind of incorrect sentence here, fixed my car by the mechanic. This is a middle step. It's not complete. And I need to say, okay, who did this? Well, I have my car. Okay, so I know me. Um, but maybe not. So I can add I. I can put I into this subject position here. Remember, originally, the mechanic was here because the mechanic fixed my car. But now I've put the mechanic at the end, and I've put a subject here, the causer I. But maybe somebody else did it. You can say the company. The company fixed my car. That's fine. Just another example that it's not just people. It can be organizations or objects, anything with money, power, or influence. And so here I'm going to take number two though and continue with this sentence. So I've added my causer, I fixed my car. So next then, we work on finding or fixing the verbs. So I have my in-between step. I fixed my car by the mechanic. It's not yet complete. I still need my causative verb have. So I add have. I add have after the subject. I had fixed my car by the mechanic. There we go. Well, now I need to check. Okay, so I added my have, but is this the past participle? So, yes, no. Well, yes, it is. Fixed is a regular verb, so this is also the past participle, same as the simple past. So we're okay. So I check the past participle, and that's good. So then I have my sentence like this. I had fixed my car by the mechanic. So this is our next step in the process. Although I want to pause here because this is why you have to be very careful with the causative. So this had fixed. This looks very similar to something. Something we have talked a lot about. I think you may know. This looks already like the past perfect. Had done, had gone, had fixed, had slept. You know, I had eaten dinner before coming to work. So that looks like the past perfect. And so this is why the final step, number 5, is so important. Because if you do not do the final step, you make a past perfect sentence, and this sentence um, means something totally different than the causative sentence. So the final thing is to move the object between the have and the past participle. So we have our in-between sentence. I had fixed my car by the mechanic. And I see here, okay, my car is not in the correct position. This is past perfect. So I need to move it. I need to move it between have and the past participle. So I had my car fixed by the mechanic. Ah, there we go. Now we have the causative sentence. And so this is key. It's essential to be very careful that you always put this in between, your object in between the have verb and your past participle, because otherwise you make up a perfect tense. You'll either make a past perfect or a present perfect sentence, and it will have a different meaning, um, especially if you remove the subject. So I can say, I had my car fixed. Perfect. Or I can say, I had fixed my car. And those have very different meanings. One, I paid money to someone else, and the other, I did it myself. I had fixed my car. So, as I say, just be very careful like that. Make sure if you say a causative sentence, the object goes in the middle. And this is really the only situation where English will put an object between the verbs. So if you see this, you know it's probably a causative sentence as well. And then you have it. You're done. You've done all the steps. I had my car fixed by the mechanic, and we've taken the original sentence, the mechanic fixed my car, and made it causative. Now I want to say who did it, who caused it to happen. And like I said, um, you can change it. For example, you talk to a friend. Hello, friend. A mechanic fixed my car. And they can say, oh, okay, well, how did that happen? And you want to say, how did it happen? Well, that's when you use the causative. Oh, well, I had my car fixed. I paid for it. Or, oh, the company had my car fixed. They paid for it. And so that's one of those situations where this is very important when you're wanting to explain who or what was the source of this. And so I'm kind of going to give you another structure here. So yes, you can use this transformation to move a sentence from causative to active or from active to causative and do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But really, an English speaker does not think this way. An English speaker is thinking, I want to say who did it. I want to say who caused it. So that's really what we're doing. And so you can think of this as a meaning structure. So I want to answer who fixed my car. So I say the causer, the company, had, the thing affected, my car, and then the verb fixed. And that's how I can say who did it. That's how I can answer that question. The company or I had my car fixed, and I've been able to communicate that idea. Who did it? Who caused it to happen? All right. But of course, I have some additional notes for you. So one thing to know is that all verb tenses can be causative. So we can have it in the present tense. I have my haircut every day. And that, there we have it as a habit. It's a very strange habit. I have my haircut every day, maybe every month. Every month. Okay. I have my haircut every month. And I can use it as a present tense to talk about a habit. Or I can use it in a continuous tense, having my haircut. So maybe, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm having my haircut right now. And you can talk tell someone in progress what's going on, that you are causing this to happen right now. Or it can be past tense, I had my haircut yesterday. Or it can be perfect. Um, I have had my haircut before. This is a perfect example, a present perfect. So maybe someone asks, have you used this salon before? Yeah, I've had my hair cut here before. It's a great salon. And so we're using a present perfect. Or you can use it with modal verbs. Um, I can have my hair cut now. I got paid. Woo, I can I have more money. I can go to the salon. Um, or you can use it as an obligation. I have to have my hair cut. This is an obligation. I have to pay someone. I have to make this happen. So this is just to show that you can use the causative in all of these different ways. What's important is the verb. So as I said, get, you can use get informally. Get my haircut, getting my haircut, got my haircut, have gotten my haircut, can get my haircut. You can use get. Have is another common one here. And in English, another causative verb is made. So something like, I made the hairdresser cut my hair. Um, so there are actually several verbs that are causative. It is a small group. Have, get, made, cause. So you can use those verbs in the causative, but other ones not. So it's a very specific property of this verb. The most common are have and get. I say focus on those two. Focus on have and get. Those are more important. So what about questions? How do I make questions about this? Well, for questions, we use do. So you add do to the sentence. Do you have your haircut here? So the original sentence, you have your haircut here. I have my haircut here. And then to make the question, do. Do you have your haircut here? Or past tense. Did we have pizza delivered last night? Oh, it was a crazy party. I can't remember. Did we have pizza? Did we have pizza delivered? So you can use do or did to make questions, present or past. Um, and just remember, you'll always use do for the causative, and it's the same for the negative. You just add do not before have. I don't have my haircut. So, no, I don't have my haircut. I do it myself. Or, we didn't have pizza delivered. I made pizza. You don't remember? um, so, and this is just to show that for questions and for the negative, you always use do for both of those. All right. Well, that was a lot of information. So congratulations if you have if you have come all this way. I recognize that this is not the easiest thing. It is a complicated idea, and there's a lot of transformation happening. So if you are a SEDA student and you want more practice with the causative, please go to the Google Classroom and you'll be able to find some additional material to practice the causative. And as always, you can download my notes, and you'll always have the step-by-step transformation if you download my PowerPoint so that you can have your notes to help revise and study. So everything that we talked about in this lesson, we reviewed the passive a little bit, just the original passive, what they are and how to make them using I kicked the ball was kicked, that kind of passive. And then we talked about this special type of passive, the causative. And this is used when someone uses their money or power to make another person do something, or another thing to happen, either one. And that's what we talked about today. The kind of important form here is the causer, have your object, and then the past participle. And then you can say the subject if you want. And the 4 steps that we talked about, where you move the subject or delete it, add the causer, add have and check your past participle, and then put the object after have. That was kind of the most 4 important steps if you want to use the causative. And remember, I also talked about it in that meaning context. So you can always think about meaning. I want to say who caused something to happen. So I can say, who caused it to happen? Well, the company had my car fixed. They had it happen, so I can say it with the causative. All right. Well, that's everything for today. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you try the causative the next time you get your hair done, you go to the grocery store, or anything where you're using money. That's a very common situation for the passive is when you're paying. So give it a try the next time you pay something. Well, I hope you have a good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming. I hope to see you again. Bye bye.